fantasy. Mike is the author of Hollywood Cowboys, Kiss of the Traitor, Dead Towns, and the forthcoming, actually out already, Terminal Horizon, because he's going to be reading that tonight. He is currently writing the last installment of the Hollywood Cowboys series, titled Seasons of the Dead. Mike is the past president and co-founder of the Northwest Independent Writers Association.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I am a writer. So I'm going to be reading from Terminal Horizons, which is my recent collection of short stories. There are 10 science fiction short stories, my first foray into science fiction. It's all set place in the same universe at different points in time throughout the history of this universe, and 6 of the stories are tied together by a man named John Wayfinder, who has become unstuck in space and time and is trying to solve the mystery of his life and why this has happened to him. I have just gotten over a cold, so please bear with me. My voice is really harsh. The story I'll be reading today is No War Tomorrow. No War Tomorrow. They made us do things we didn't want to do. We fell upon your world with iron talons, a payload of death from above. We never questioned our orders. We didn't feel alive inside until we killed and killed again. They bred us for war, and in war we found our reason for existing. They made us do things we didn't want to do, but in the end, what else besides war did we really know? What else could we do? I helped set it all on fire. I stood in the flames upon the bodies of those we conquered. I basked in the blood of the dying. I did things I didn't want to do, but some primal part of me enjoyed doing them all the same. In the end, I knew the dead always buried the living. The piles of the deceased would rise taller than all the mountains of the worlds we left bruised under our boots. The dead would rise and bury the living. Then there would be no war tomorrow. From orbit, most planets look the same. You can't see nations and their boundaries, only land masses, islands, and oceans. You realize how the artificial mapping of a world, or a universe for that matter, has us running around in circles, endlessly preoccupied with nationality, ethnic divisions, and racial and religious groups. In the end, all sentient life in the universe bleeds red. Not that we ever have time to think about those things when we're about to drop out of orbit and onto a targeted planet. We always hit the ground running, genetic infantry, unleashed on a world stupid enough to stand in the way of the progress and peace the Federated Core Worlds offered, whether they wanted it or not. Guns locked and loaded, our dicks swinging in the wind, we came to conquer. I dropped into the mud of a planet with a name I couldn't even remember. The newbie dropping into the muck beside me had been assigned as my shadow. The platoon sergeant always assigned us vets a noob when we hit the serious shit, and this mudball of a planet we dropped into was one of the most serious places during the 1,000-year war. Don't ask me what the battle was called. You tend to lose count and lose track of all this, of all what historians back in the core worlds call what they call each battle in a seemingly endless war. In the end, we always won. So what did it matter what some armchair general wanted to call one bloody brawl or another? My new green bomb looked scared shitless. I couldn't blame him. Anybody going into this kind of battle who told you they weren't scared were lying through their teeth or had more balls than brains. Private, I told him over the comm unit of my heads-up display helmet, close your visor before you get your shot in the face. Green bomb reached up and triggered his visor. It slid shut with a hiss. Why these noobs always thought their eyes were better than the heads-up display of their helmet puzzled me. Our head helmets were leaked to our rifles for better accuracy. They gave us communication on multiple levels. Platoon-wide, squad-wide, GI to GI. They gave us friend or foe identification, ammo count, and atmospheric readings. About the only thing our HUD helmets couldn't do was cook us a nice meal and pour us a beer after we had a hard day's killing. Green Bomb and I belly crawled through the muck, taking cover behind a shattered piece of steel that had been a ground transport before being slagged by some sort of thermal weapon. We operated as a two-man scout team for our squad. The boys in Bravo Squad had been given the dirty duty of recon on an enemy bunker our surveillance ships had spotted from orbit. My squad leader, Sergeant Grunner, had handpicked me as eyes forward because he was still pissed that I had caught the attention of our new commanding officer. Apparently she had a thing for GIs, although her manipulated DNA made her far more superior cerebrally. Nobody back at headquarters would have imagined a brainy woman like her going for the likes of grunts like us. Either way, Grunner feared that I might be gunning for his job as squad leader. Like I needed that kind of headache. Bad enough I had to drag Greenbaum's ass behind me for the next couple of weeks. I couldn't imagine what I would do if I actually had to lead a squad of men. I just didn't need that kind of responsibility riding on my shoulders. I felt completely content to follow orders, killing the enemy and generally being a GI. That's what the egghead scientists created me for. Peeking around a melted corner of the transport, I could see the bunker on a muddy rise. The place dominated the field of fire. Except for the vehicle we hid behind, I couldn't see anything around the hillside but mud for 200 meters. As heavy as the fighting had been since we landed on this rock, it surprised me that the ground wasn't littered with corpses. Obviously there had been some fighting here. The pockmarked mud and the damaged transport revealed that fact. I mentally toggled my comm unit to Grunner's scrambled frequency. Grunner, we're at the fire base. No contact with the enemy. Not much cover here. We got pretty close. If you send someone up here with a bunker buster, we could probably put a round right through the front door. No go on the bunker buster, my squad leader's gruff voice answered. The BB went with Charlie's squad. Where did Charlie go, I asked. The top called Charlie and Delta squad back to the landing zone. Not sure why. Platoon leader went with them, left us an Alpha squad here, and instructed us to take the bunker by dark. Okay, I sighed. Greenbaum and I will sit tight until you guys get here. Negative, Jones, Brenner told me. We're going to be delayed. Heavy resistance fell on behind you two after you left. I expect the bunker secured by the time I lead Alpha and Bravo there. You expect me to take a bunker with this noob? 2 genetic infantry soldiers of the Federated Corps Worlds are worth hundreds of these guys we're fighting, Jones. And I doubt the enemy has 100 men in that bunker. Grunner, I started. He cut me off. Do it, or your friend in the rear will hear about your insubordination. And if there's one thing I know about a CO can't stand, it's in an insubordinate GI. He didn't have to say any more. I'd seen my fair share of GIs going through reprogramming training after disobeying orders. No way would I let someone screw up my brain like that. Those guys always came back as perfect soldiers, but they were never the same. They usually only lasted a mission or two before doing some truly heroic shit that got their gung-ho butts killed. Roger that, I answered, clicking off Grunner's link and switching to Greenbaum's. Kid, take a peek and tell me if you see anybody in that gunnery sled. Okay, he stammered. Greenbaum raised his head slowly above our cover. His visor slid open, and I could see him squinting his eyes. Noob, get your damn visor down and use your optical zoom! A loud gunshot rang out across the field of mud, one single round. The retort echoed like a thunderclap, fading into the distant sky. Greenbaum fell onto his back in the muck. His eyes stared blankly at the overcast gray sky. The bottom half of his face had disintegrated into bone, blood, and blistered skin. Grunner's voice came bellowing into my helmet. Jones, what's happening there? I just got a flat line of Greenbaum's vitals. Not now, I answered, muting his channel. Sitting with my back against the broken transport, I looked at Greenbaum's body and cursed Grunner's stupidity. This kid should still be alive. I blamed Grunner for this, and I planned to let him know after I put my boot up his ass. When he got here, after I took the damn bunker. Hunkering down as deep into the grime as I could, I readied my rifle. I edged my helmet out slowly, a bit at a time, until the optical zoom in my visor had a clear enough view to see the gunnery slit of the bunker. What I saw surprised even a hardened combat vet like myself. I could see the long barrel of a sniper rifle sticking out of the gun slit, but not the face of the soldier on the other side of the weapon. That didn't surprise me at all. What shocked me was the man standing on top of the bunker, waving at me like some long-lost friend. The guy looked pretty tall, over 6 foot for sure. He wore a long black duster and an odd-looking wide-brimmed hat with a silver hat band inlaid with some sort of bluish-green gemstones. I zoomed in on his face. He grinned at me with a clean-shaven and square-jawed face. Violet-colored eyes gleamed with mischief. Long brown hair spilled out from beneath his hat, falling across his wide shoulders. The stranger held up a finger to his lips, telling me to be silent. I watched as he reached into his long coat and retrieved a slender cylindrical device made of dull silver, about the size of a small baton. He went prone above the gun slit of the bunker. I zoomed in on the device in his hand as he clicked a button on one end of the cylinder with his thumb. Leaning quickly over the edge of the bunker's roof, he flicked the cylinder through the slit just to the right of the sniper's gun barrel. A silent, bright white flash lit up the inside of the bunker for a brief, brilliant instant. Polarizing filters in my visor automatically compensated for the sudden flare of light. I could see the enemy sniper outlined briefly, then the flash subsided. The sniper rifle tumbled through the gun slit, falling into the mud in front of the bunker. The stranger jumped to his feet and pumped his fist in celebration. He waved again, then he waved for me to come up the hill. I pulled myself back behind cover, not really sure what the hell I had just witnessed. Where did this guy come from? He had no armor, no rifle, and he was in the middle of a dangerous combat zone. Pulling the stock of my rifle up into my right shoulder, I raised the barrel and my head slowly up over the top of the transport. Nobody stood on the roof. The stranger had disappeared. If I didn't see the sniper rifle lying in front of the bunker, I would have thought I'd lost my mind. Even genetically predisposed for war, a GI can still get shell shocked. But I knew what my eyes had seen. I leapt to my feet, rifle at the ready, moving around the transport. I made my way up the hill carefully, eyes locked on the gun slit and the roof of the bunker. I rushed the last few meters up the hill, shoving my rifle into the gun slit, ready to unload my clip on anyone inside. The stranger stood inside the bunker's forward defensive position, just beside the prone body of the enemy I had been dropped on this planet to fight. The stranger held up his hands defensively. "Whoa, hold your fire," he told me in the patois of the Federated Core Worlds. "She's incapacitated, and I'm not here to fight you." "Keep your hands where I can see them," I commanded through my helmet's external speaker. "I can do that." "How'd you get in here? How'd you get in there? How'd you get from the roof to inside the bunker?" He smiled as if he'd known me for years and we were just having a friendly chat about who to bet on in the next Slaughter Spear game. "That's kind of complicated, but if you'd let me, I'll walk over to that hatch over there and I'll let you inside the bunker." He pointed to a sealed hatch, invisible on the outside of the bunker just to his left. "Open it slowly," I warned him. The stranger followed my orders, not hurrying to the door. I followed him along the gun slit, my rifle aimed at his back. A hiss and whine of hydraulics emanated from the door as it opened. "Move back from the hatch," I told him. Get down face first on the floor." "This isn't necessary," the stranger complained as he complied. I worried about taking my eyes off him for the couple of moments it took me to get through the door of the bunker. I made the dash in record time. The hatch slid shut behind me and I took in the situation. The stranger lay face first on the hard floor of the bunker, not far from my enemy. The silver cylindrical device that had taken my enemy out was nowhere in sight. Another door at the rear of the defensive position led into the main part of the bunker. It remained sealed. Apparently the stranger hadn't come through that way. Keeping my rifle aimed at the two people on the floor, I moved to the other door and checked it out. According to the control panel, the door was locked. But what really took me aback was that someone had sealed the thing with a welding torch on this side of the door. "This probably seems pretty crazy to you," the stranger said. "Oh, not at all. You wouldn't believe what I've seen in my lifetime." "True," the stranger agreed. "The life of a genetic infantryman has taken you all across the known universe of FedCore space. I'm certain you've seen and done more than most people, except for me, of course. Let's talk about you." I stepped up to the gun slit, looking back outside the bunker. Seeing nothing, I took a few steps closer to the man, my rifle pointed in his general direction. But it was at the ready to defend the bunker's inner door if the enemy decided to bust through the seal. "I'm not shy," he said. "Ask me anything about myself, and I'll probably give you an answer." "May I get up from the floor? It's kind of cold." "Sit up slowly, but remain seated." He did as directed, pulling himself first to his knees and brushing dirt from the front of his duster. He sat cross-legged on the floor, tipping his hat back to look at me. "Who are you, and why did you help me get into this bunker?" I asked. "My name is John Wayfinder." He offered his hand in friendship, but withdrew it when he realized I didn't plan on letting go of my rifle to shake back. "I helped you get into this bunker because I need your assistance. Getting you into this place seemed the most reasonable means of keeping you alive." "Alive?" I stepped back defensively, bringing the barrel of my weapon up, ready to fire. "Relax, Jedediah," he smiled. "If I wanted to harm you, I would have done so already." Wayfinder pointed behind me. I did a quick spin to the right, keeping the stranger in my sight, but looking over my shoulder. Behind me, the small silver cylinder floated about eye level. Through my helmet's external audio receptors, I could hear a slight hum coming from the device, but none of my HUD sensors picked up its presence. "It's okay," he assured me. "You saw what it did to your enemy. She's just incapacitated for a bit, but trust me, if I wanted her, are you dead? The device is more capable than turning both your bodies to ash." Backpedaling towards one of the bunker's walls, I kept a close watch on both Wayfinder and his device, my rifle tracking back and forth between targets, with my finger poised on the trigger. "I need your help," he repeated. "Jedediah, I am not your enemy." I looked at him, my disbelief hid behind my mirrored visor. Then what he said clicked. I snapped my rifle into my shoulder and aimed it at Wayfinder. The target computer linked with my weapon locked onto the stranger. It started beeping confirmation of an assured shot. We called that interaction between rifle and targeting system battle site 0. If my finger even caressed the trigger, this man's life would end in an abrupt millisecond. "How do you know my name?" I asked. "I've been looking for someone like you, Corporal Jedediah Jones, Jonesy to your friends and squad mates. I told you I need your help. You're the only one in your platoon that leaves this planet alive. You've lost your mind, Wayfinder. There was a time when I thought I had, a long time ago, another lifetime. The enemy soldier began to moan from beneath her helmet. She writhed as if in pain. I wondered if this was all some kind of elaborate hoax. Who knew what kind of psyops, mind games, their intelligence networks ran on ground pounders like me? It would be one hell of a coup for the enemy if they could get a hold of a GI and take him apart physically and mentally. Why didn't you kill her if you were capable of doing it? I demanded to know. She's not my enemy, he said, as if I should already be aware of this. She's not really even your enemy, Jedediah. Now I knew this whole ordeal had to be some sort of mind game. My finger tightened on the trigger. I'd had enough. I mean, I know she's your enemy now, Corporal, but your true enemy, our true enemy, won't arrive in this universe for another 1,000 years. But they're already operating through human agents in this century, experimenting with methods to dispose of our race, exploiting our weaknesses and self-destructive nature. Your platoon will become the victim of their last experiments, just like her people. He gestured to the soldier, trying to pull her helmet off. Ask her, she's coming too, ask her why she sealed herself off in this part of the bunker. My head hurt. I was just a grunt designed for combat. Not that I was stupid. We were psychologically hardened to resist torture, interrogations, and brainwashing. But this thing had gotten too strange. Even for a guy who had seen strange from one side of the universe to the next. I mentally clicked off the muted Grunner's channel, deciding that the time had come to report in. I let him know what I'd gotten into the bunker and captured one hostile and one unknown agent. A high piercing whine drilled into my ears, cutting through my brain like a shipboard laser cannon. I screamed in pain, falling to one knee, barely keeping hold of my rifle. I tried to mute the channel, but the shrill sound cut my concentration so deep I couldn't get the helmet to respond to my mental commands. My vision began to blur. My rifle dropped from my hands as vertigo sent me sprawling sideways. The familiar hiss on my helmet's seal breaking was absent as it disengaged from the rest of my armor. The screeching sound faded away, and I found myself lying on my side, trying to stop the spinning in my head. As my vision cleared, I watched Wayfinder walking away from me. He held my helmet in one hand and the helmet of my enemy in the other. As if throwing away unwanted trash, the tall man tossed both helmets to the gun slit. Part of me wanted to protest, maybe even shoot him in the back for that. But the rational, reasonable part of me realized that John Wayfinder had just saved my life. The enemy soldier tried to stand. Instinct drove pain from my head. Reaching for my rifle, I also tried to stand. Then I realized that my rifle lay on the other side of the room, against the gun slit wall where Wayfinder must have put it. When Wayfinder turned from the gun slit, striding across the room, he casually snatched the silver cylinder from the air and placed it in a holster on his right hip, hidden beneath the folds of his black duster. The rest, he told the enemy as he passed by here. He stood over me, offering his hand. I looked up at him as my head cleared. Take it, he told me. I told you I'm your friend. I reached up, taking his hand. As he helped me to my feet, I fully intended to draw my monofilament knife and drive it into his gut, or at least get it to his throat and make him tell me the truth about what was happening. Our eyes met for the first time. I left the knife in the sheath at the small of my back. Something about looking into Wayfinder's violet eyes put me at ease. I felt as if I had known him for years. A small part of my mind told me I had always known John Wayfinder, and that I always would. Without knowing how or why, I realized that Wayfinder and I were about to become close friends. They're jamming all the frequencies, he told me, both sides. Who's doing the jamming? Agents of our true enemy. The experiment is about to begin. Nagda, Nagda, the enemy soldier cried out. I didn't need my helmet's translator to understand. No, no. She scrambled around looking for her sniper rifle. Apparently she didn't know she dropped it out the gun slit. Her eyes found my assault rifle. She looked at me, scared out of her mind. More scared than I'd ever seen any noob on their first combat route. We bolted for my rifle at the same time. It's okay, I heard Wayfinder call out. I reached my weapon first, turning it on her. She halted, holding her hands up. The look of desperation playing across her face as she mumbled, Nagda, no experiment, no experiment. Overhead, I heard the roar of engines bellow, followed by the thunderclap of a sonic boom. A high-pitched whistling noise followed. It was getting louder and louder. I looked out the gun slit. Bomb-shaped canisters fell with loud splats into the mud. Hundreds of them spread across the terrain. A spray of mud drenched me as one canister smacked down directly in front of the bunker. The thing broke apart with a pop and a hiss. A noxious green gas bellowed out of the crater like the bomb had made. As far as my eyes could see, pillars of gas quickly rose into the air and spread out like thick green fog. Gas, 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 I screamed, my training taking over. Unfortunately, my training called for me to check the seal of my head helmet, and make sure the thing vented properly. I couldn't do much with the helmet lost outside in the thick mist of green fumes. It's okay, one Wayfinder kept saying. The enemy kept screaming, no, no.